It's my pleasure now to introduce a serial entrepreneur and one of the founders of augmented reality, Ambarish Mitra. Come on up, Rish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a seat. So the idea behind today is just to chat to you. Now, normally you would find yourself at big tech conferences like TechCrunch Disrupt, which we run, and things like that. So what are you doing at an education conference?
So we are at that life cycle of our business where we've built the tech and we are now doing the last mile of productizing it. And education is a key focus area for us. Already it's getting good enough traction where it's beginning to prove that education as a vertical and augmented reality is an excellent match. And I thought, what better place to talk about it than here?
Right. Well, actually, what we should do is we should back up a little bit and just, for those of you in the room who aren't familiar with Blipper, let's talk a little bit about the product and what it does and where it's come from, where it is now, and where it's going to next. Just let's hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. So we started Blipper almost like 6.5 years ago with a vision that we want to create this universal visual browser which can recognize anything and everything, so that anyone who's curious about the world they're looking at, they can get additional content. Initially, we started really sort of brand heavy, working with a lot of marketing and brand companies using something called image recognition technology. That wasn't really taking us nearer to a vision of making the whole world into an interactive platform. So only last 3-4 years, we massively invested in an AI-based deep learning framework, which really made this a reality. So today, we are at a stage where we can recognize like hundreds of millions of things, and it is available for anyone to take it in and add a layer of content on top of it. But you might think that, hey, why is this like really even useful? But you may not realize that though in the internet evolution, we've been using browsers and apps, which has been great, but they're all very words heavy. You should try it for yourself. You'll see hundreds and thousands of things in your everyday life which even the educated people cannot describe it with their vocabulary. So we are predicting the next era of computing is going to be very visual heavy and natural language heavy, not just keyboard-based interfaces where you input words, and we want to play a significant role in that moving forward.
Well, I suppose actually one of the first sort of manifestations of that new world has been Alexa, the Alexa, the voice from Amazon's Echo. Yeah. Do you think that we're moving into a place where it's going to be very visual, and Alexa becomes effectively recognizing you as well? There is a certain amount of that going on. The Amazon show, I gather, can actually recognize you a little bit, can't it?
Yeah, so Amazon has aspects of it where it's, Amazon's still core behavior to integrate everything into shopping, where shopping is still a vertical of our life, it's not our life. So it's doing already some prototypes along the lines of recommending you outfits based on the outfits you're wearing, and so some level of preliminary machine vision stuff.
What do you think of what they're doing? Are you impressed by it?
It's okay. Let's put it this way. In our the natural language processing world, you can compare it to your own senses, right? So right now you are hearing my and Mike's voice, but there are still like hundreds and thousands of points of distraction to your eyes. So vision as a sense is it's like a primary sense, and it has a lot more points than as an audio signal. So the technology complexity of vision is way bigger than technology complexity of understanding audio signals. So in this very maturity curve, you will, so like if you use the analogy of all the senses we have, even our brain processing touch is a much simpler thing to vision. That's why in computing, touch became first. It was simpler. The next evolution, it's like only 5% of our brain uses audio capabilities. So next was natural language. And our brain uses like 38% its brain power to process the visual world. And even from a computing point of view, it's equally complex. So that curve will come eventually, but it's hard for everybody. And everybody who shows, so Amazon is only showing clothes because it's a simpler problem to solve, but on a universal level, it's still very complex for all of us.
So, I mean, bringing it around to the big issue of the conference about education, I gather you just did a project with the Royal British Legion, using AR to tell stories from the First World War. People could point their smartphone camera at a pin or something?
At the Poppy Legion
Oh, the
pin.
Poppy pin, that's right,
yeah.
yeah. So you point your smartphone at the pin using the Blipper app, and then it would put them into an immersive view of a muddy trench from the First World War. So tell us a little bit about, there's a business model of that you do that, but tell us a little bit about how you think that could be used in an education sense.
Sure. Well, I'll give you real examples. Today, I think around 24 to 30,000 educators and schools are working with us, and including on the publishing side like Pearson's and a few more. One of the important things we're noticing is, and this is a hypothesis, it's not a proven medium yet because we need a lot more data points, but we're noticing that kids, again, most of them are very visual learners, and STEM education particularly, which can be mundane how it's taught, already we're noticing where certain lessons are augmented as an A/B test. Let's say the lesson of geometry, and how do you calculate the volume of a pyramid? If you point your iPad on the lesson and literally a pyramid comes out, and then it explains you how do you calculate the volume, the retentive nature of the kid was like much longer than reading that same lesson. So
the visual stimulation means that they learn faster and they remember it.
They remember it,
right.
Because it was not just a two-dimensional hand-drawn diagram. And
also, they get to use an iPad.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the second part of it, I almost feel in ancient, ancient education styles where your teacher was everything, was a life philosopher, in the era of Aristotle, where kids were taught about philosophy and about life and about your environment immediately. So I feel computer vision can really drive that curiosity, because kids by nature are curious. That hey, what's that chair? Or is this spoon I'm looking at, for the spoon you're eating from, is that just a spoon or there's a stainless steel in it? There's an aspect of pig iron, then there's a history of spoon. You can just look at the most mundane things in the world, and we as grown-ups might find it mundane, but youngsters, they go through this concept called knowledge graph, where every piece of information in the world is connected to something else. It's an incredible way to hop, so you can, and some of them even play games that who can go from like a ceramic plate to Barack Obama in 12 steps, because every piece of information in the world is connected. So we are seeing, part of our role is to throw it out there and observe which parts are working really well with educators, because they're all domain experts. And for us to just keep providing the tech. So we have a sort of a platform called Blip Builder. It's very easy to use. Doesn't require any coding skills. Even like a 7-8-year-old kids are using it. And our goal is to make it as simple as possible for educators and kids to get into the AR curve.
What are some of the other kinds of applications you think it could be used for in education. I mean, for instance, we saw the rise of the rise and slight fall to some extent of Pokemon Go, in where you're running around looking for virtual items. Would you consider that to be augmented reality as well, by the way, or is it sort of gamified AI?
No, it was gamified AR. I think it served its purpose. The AR part of the PR story made it very AR, but the AR part of the game was the least used because it consumes your battery. But it was, I would say, it did a lot for the industry in general, for the awareness of it. But I would say in reality, like augmented reality would be like a lot bigger than what the manifestation happened with Pokemon.
But you've been actually, I think, have you unveiled something here, or are you about to?
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow in the plenary we'll show something exciting and almost like a whole new way of presentation itself.
Can you give us a hint?
No hints. It's just
no
tomorrow,
hints?
like, hey,
Okay,
16
well, it's
hours.
just us. There is a journalist at the back. Oh, yeah, and I'm a journalist as well. I forgot about that. What other things you think are going on? I mean, Microsoft released what's the future of some of this stuff? Microsoft released its HoloLens, and and then there's Magic Leap, which hasn't properly launched yet. We've had a little bit of previews of it. The HoloLens, I think, when it first came out, was a little bit actually. The videos about HoloLens were amazing. You're standing there, you're looking at a skeleton, but I'm sure you've tried one, right? And you put this on, and actually, it's really not that great. It's kind of disappointing. And then Magic Leap hasn't appeared yet, and yet people say it's going to be incredible, and they're literally going to project images onto the back of your eyeball. It sounds super sci-fi. But these things are kind of cumbersome, aren't they? And yet, the ease of an AR app on your phone, to some extent, still hasn't really taken off, has it? What do you think is going to move the needle? Is it going to be a Magic Leap or a better HoloLens or an app or what?
So, first of all, I personally believe that though when people are talking about augmented reality, a lot of emphasis is being given to hardware players. But in reality, in your everyday life, I still feel software is what drives adoption. People will forget about the hardware. Like okay, there's a bit of a buzz that what's my latest phone, but your entire purpose of your phone's existence is based on the app store and the utility you get out of the software. So I think we have to almost treat the Magic Leaps and the HoloLenses of the world as a shell. And their challenge is to make the display and the processing and the ecosystem for companies like us to wanting to work with them and make their products more attractive. And that's the challenge in their hands, which is something I would say like Apple and Google do a phenomenal job of. And I don't think the conversation will change much, even if you have the coolest head-mounted device today invented, unless the content makers are excited and they make it very easy and accessible. So we as a business, we've taken a strategy to generally keep our 1 foot into the future. So we work with pretty much every wearable computing platform just to see the compatibility aspect of it. We realistically know none of them even have 5,000 users, so it's early days. But at the same time, the universal device still is the phone, and it's going to be there for quite some time. And there's a lot of incredible innovation happening in the phone camera itself. Like now, camera is a company inside phone company. It's like almost the most important department. The VP of camera probably makes the highest salary these days.
Inside Apple and
everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Galaxy, Samsung.
So I think we will see. This is me just predicting inside 24 months period, first generation of native AR capability is going into on an operating, if not operating system, certainly on a device level. Yeah, and that's what I'm. So phone is still going to remain a little more dominant form factor, and even if Magic Leap creates the most killer thing one has ever seen, what's the learning curve? Like today, you can do anything on the internet because the common factor in the internet is JavaScript and HTML. So where's the standardization in AR? And we are being, as a company, very vocal about it, that today we are all competing in silos. So we took the first step, and we haven't been able to convince everybody. So we made our entire code reverse compatible with front-end technologies of the web. So anybody who knows how to code in JavaScript and HTML can code in AR today. So there's like 20 million coders in the world can jump into this curve. But we're talking to everybody else that let's standardize it rather than create our own custom languages, because that's what's creating the barrier. The barrier is not the users are ready. The barriers is us all giving up proprietary technologies and saying we are the best. That's not going to work forward.
We're going to do some Q&A shortly, but I wanted to ask you guys, hands up if you've tried VR. Right? Pretty much most of you. Hands up. Keep your hand up if you've done it regularly in the last couple of months. 2. There you go. So VR still very early days, isn't it, to some extent? Yeah. What extent surely that Apple, aren't you worried that Apple and Google and Samsung, et cetera, will effectively take some of the ideas that you guys have got about being able to look up at the world and sort of recognize objects? They'll just do it, put it straight into the phone, and that'll be a problem for Blipper.
It won't work. I mean, it has never worked for anybody. Like, there's a reason Spotify still exists and is very proud. It's
right.
Today, if and anything Apple does and Samsung can't do it, you've already lost 75% of the world. So that's why these neutral players, and we're doing a lot of work to talking to all these guys about standardization in general, because we care about where the industry is moving, and we've generally been, at least in the AR space, slightly ahead of the curve historically. So we'll see how it goes, but I think even if there's like tremendous strong news story about Apple launches this and only works in iPhone cameras, that's not a promise of a bright future for AR, unless this becomes a default function within your everybody's camera's photography lens.
Is it just the case that Blipper gets bought by Apple then?
We'll feel, I mean, no comments there, but yeah. But generally, I feel like any technologies, the internet exists because of standardization. Augmentation would require that too.
Yeah. Just swinging back to education again. I mean, you know, kids can get a kind of a wow factor by, you know, using the Blipper app.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've seen teachers doing with it that makes it interesting for you?
Yeah, I mean, teachers today are doing a lot of lesson plans. You know, I've seen, even last night I tweeted about it. Like, we discover about our own stuff from the internet all the time. And like, teachers are creating great content where a typical classroom has verbally lessons being imparted, but most classrooms have a lot of visual features, like anatomy of the human body, the solar system, like typical, all that stuff. And a lot of them are augmenting all those things which comes out in the 3-dimensional space. So I saw a very good example of a teacher explaining the concept of revolution and rotation, where when you use your phone, the child becomes the sun, and all the planets revolve around him in the room. And even then the planets have their own sub-satellites which revolve around the planet. So you're almost experiencing solar system. Not only are you learning about, you can interact with all those planets, but you're also understanding the concept of motion and elliptical path and all. But this was a teacher's idea.
That's
excellent.
And
that students
love
it, but they use the tool. So, you know, we almost like that sort of Photoshop of AR, where I'm not going to teach, I'm going to just teach you to enhance your own creativity and imagination, but we're not going to be the one who'll be creating the content for you.
And that's, I'm sure, like teachers and kids probably come up with uses that you might even be completely surprising
Everything,
to you guys.
even like the puppy example, we had like nothing to do with it, just being the technology provider.
It just got built.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
amazing. Has anybody got any questions actually for Rich while we've got him here? Yes, sir. Go ahead. Well, not. Do we have a mic actually? Let's see. We've got a mic. We'll get a mic to you. Just 1 second. Let's do some Q&A. Oh, it's up the front here. Sorry. We'll get you one. Yeah. Can we just get a question over here? You have to go back in. Gonna make everyone walk around quickly. Thank you.
Thanks. So, really great talk. And I think the future that you're talking about when we're seeing all these smart glasses come in and everything is that I feel like you won't really have to learn anything about what's around you because everything will be augmented, and everything will be very easy to know. Like, why do an exam when you can look at a problem or look at a broken table and know that, hey, these are all the things you need to do to fix it. So this then becomes a philosophical question about then what do you think is the place of, the purpose of human beings if we get to a point where you don't need to learn anything, everything will be available, through your glasses, streaming stuff to your retina like Intel is doing right now. How then will we move forward if we see all these technologies are then being bought up by the top companies and then just being funneled into consumerism? Have you really thought about other use cases that can actually do something else and make us spend more?
There's the other. Let's go with your question. If you'd just like to give the microphone back. Let's go with the question actually, why are we going to bother? If we can why would we learn anything? We could just hold a smartphone up to it and say, what's that? We don't have to do any heavy lifting.
I really like that question. Also, it's a little bit partially part of my talk tomorrow. But, my view is the role of the human is going to be challenged in the next 15, 20 years in a big way, where we are going. And I feel the material knowledge of the universe is cumulative and it's always growing, right? And I think a lot of learning process is going to become like in the Iron Man movie with the Jarvis character, where that Iron Man actually doesn't know much. He said, hey, I'm building this. What's the melting point of this suit? He said, hey, if you go above like 2 kilometers of the Earth, it's going to freeze. Then he's going to go and experiment, and he realized actually it's 2.2. And then the supercomputer updates information. So today, this concept of knowledge graph truly means, and what you're experiencing in Amazon Echo is the first audio interpretation of it. When you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. It's actually extracting that out of a knowledge graph. I think tomorrow, there'll be a bigger role of teachers and educators to focus more on empathy and kindness and what defines us to be a human being. And really a lot of the knowledge is going to be really driven by a lot more automation. And I think this is going to be a very important discussion moving forward. But I think the role of teachers in our life and role of parents are going to be substantially changing. And the role of knowledge, which is, hey, A plus B whole square, formula, capital of, India, all that is available, and it's completely based on your curiosity, and everything's going to be available to you but your creativity, your empathy, your mental strength, your compatibility in a wider, the lot more focus that of role of education will go to. That's my view moving forward.
Okay, we've got the microphone. I've got a question here, and then we'll come over here. Sure. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, thank you for your insight and your time. I have a question for you that it's more about my concern about the potential, because I see the potential benefits, but if we look at the other side, augmented reality really means that you can no longer trust your eyes. Yeah. So what it means is that what ad you'll see is what Google decides you need to see, And maybe what food at a buffet you see is what your doctor tells you is okay to eat, or maybe we don't need Tinder anymore because I just won't see people that don't match my profile. But this is more my concern, is the fact that we're surrendering our sense and our ability to interpret the world and make decisions to some big data. That's the part of it that worries me.
It's a very fair worry. So that's where I'll give you the positive first. Never before a technology, before it has really gone beyond its gestation period, is being questioned so much. Like, we're being questioned every day. Google is being questioned. So when the internet was being born, there was a lot more liberty, and it took its own style, and with the good and the bad, there were overall more positives than negatives. And any such movement generally has a definitely promise on a more positive side, or a negative side. We'll have to weigh out, but everybody who are the owners or the bearers of the technology, there's a strong emphasis on ethics, on biases, and even at some point there would be pressures towards decentralization and open level ownership, but that's like a very long debate. But I'm telling you, it's not going to be as much as a free ride the giants have had in the first half of the internet era. And I think in the AI era, we would slightly see a different level of responsibility, ethics, and authenticity come into play.
We have another question here.
Thanks. My name is Mariam Jam. I'm a technologist. And I've got one concern, but also one comment. I really love the work you do. Thank you so much for the work. But I'm concerned about how we can use Blipar for good.
Yeah.
How can we use technology for good? So I teach young girls how to code across marginalizing communities around the world. And so what do you think we can do to work, to push Blipar to give employability to these young women who are extremely savvy? Yeah. They kind of like move from JavaScript now to doing Python.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you're trying to standardize the coding languages. Yeah. So is there any way we can use this platform here to find a way of getting them job through your organization?
And I'm glad you asked this question. I would say effective immediately, yes. That was the whole goal, that we don't make people afraid that, first of all, there are two sides to what we're offering. One is a graphic user interface, which sort of looks like PowerPoint or Photoshop in the cloud. Anyone, and that's what 7-8-year-old kids are using it, drag and drop. We can create a content like next 2 minutes, like by logging into a system. Another people who actually know programming, they can be very precise. They can transcend the boundaries of creativity. So one of our own challenges is today, where we make revenues from, like very large companies, typically that job comes to us and then gets fulfilled by agencies who are also having to reinvent themselves because they're also thinking about the future, but there is a very large employment curve being created. So we have many partners in Brazil, in Southeast Asia, where entrepreneurs are starting AR businesses on top of our platform, and it's generating revenues for them. And we can certainly talk about where you can just take access to our platform and start teaching the girls who are working with you and create employment. We can almost prove on a pilot level a commercial funnel of training to earnings in a sort of a 6-month cycle.
There was some chatter about blockchain a lot in the tech industry, and we actually had a company pitch a blockchain startup to put educational records on blockchain. And I know that you've done this project with the British Legion about history. So pointing Blipper at a poppy, and then up comes video or information about the First World War. Do you foresee an interesting use of it, for instance, in say documenting humanitarian crisis or human rights abuses or something like that? Do you think that Blipper could be used in that way if you pointed out maybe a location or a building or something?
Yeah, I mean, we just almost treat as the whole world as a canvas for us, right? We can be anywhere in the world and place a content in a precise location, or we can trigger it from a precise thing. But our inbound inquiries has been really more about people who are in the effect of refugee camps. Kids are kids, you know, they don't know they're rich or poor, especially at least under the age of 5 and 6. And there've been more ideas about how, and there's no formal school system there, but how can technology be used to gain knowledge simply out of visual curiosity rather than a more formal schooling system. And I'm not saying against formal schooling system, because one is like a zero outcome, right? Another is a very formal structure. It'll take investment time. But till then, you know, we can move from point 0 to 0.1, 0.2, where on a basic level, in areas of crisis, kids can still be excited about the world they're living in.
If you grew up in India, didn't you? If somebody had handed Blipper to you when you were a kid, what would you have done with it?
I would have invented something even more spectacular.
Well, I can't imagine what that would be. Well, actually, wow, we're running over time. We're not running over time. We've got a little bit of extra time, so carry on. This is some more questions.
Hello, I was just wondering, first of all, you said at the beginning you've been working with some schools, and I just wondered how you were working with them. But I also wondered, have you ever worked with museums?
Yes. Yeah, with MoMA in New York, with the Natural History Museum in LA.
So
as of today means last few months, 1 million pieces of all sculptors and art, well-known one, with sort of the ones which have a sort of Wikipedia entry, are irrespective of shape, design, location, are all interactive on Blipper right now.
Thank you.
Awesome. Another question down here, actually. We'll go one at the back first.
Thanks. With the two questions that came up over here, it kind of gave me an idea of another question to ask you. And as a technologist, what do you see, what is your ethical code when it comes to AR? Considering that a lot of investors as well as early executives at all the big companies said that they actually knew what they were doing, or they knew kind of where things would go. What is your code in terms of, yes, I'll go down this route, or no, that's something that I can see, because you can foresee where that can go compared to a lot of other people?
Sure. I mean, it's an easy and a hard question at the same time. So me as an individual and then me as a chief exec shareholder can sometimes have different hats. But me as an individual, I'm very pro-ethics. We quite a very, as a company, we have a very strong voice on how data is aggregated and how data is used. We one of the we've been quite vocal about this whole standardization and decentralization, even though it'll have an impact in our long-term value, but we feel artificial intelligence will grow faster if there's aspects of decentralization, if people expose their code slightly more, because there are human biases that go into. I'll give you an example. This is real, and it will be the case against biggest companies' APIs. If you point a visual image of a man wearing a white coat, the computer says doctor, and you put the same image of a woman wearing a white coat, it says beauty technician. And you know why? Because inheriting stereotypes of pre-tagged images on the internet. And you truly cannot do human supervision of the entire internet. So some of those, but again, this is a problem, we are not letting it go. So for us, it was very easy to overlook it, but we are looking at all those biases and taking very strong calls where, we just cannot give strong positions to visually certain, like gender, and give softer professions. So these kind of questions would be coming up again and again, because tomorrow some of these systems are going to take decisions on your behalf, and we have to be very careful when we go down that path.
Yeah, it's a big issue to factor in when you're building AI. There's a question here.
Hi. I'm fairly new to AR, but with the rise of cybersecurity and all those sort of aspects, how do you see that with AR, Blipper app, and obviously your opinion on cybersecurity?
So I think cybersecurity is a bigger threat to the world than nuclear. It's a very serious threat, which still sort of Fortune 500 CIOs are underestimating. And there are people in the world who can pretty much get into any office and hack into everything the systems have. And with everything becoming digital and now autonomous driving and cryptocurrency and your wallets being digital, everything being your identity now in China being digitized and paperless passports, then it's becomes an increasingly big threat. And always, all I would say that smaller companies have lesser threat naturally, but you have a threshold beyond which you go big. I mean, even a company of our size, we get denial of service attacks like at least twice a month. So it's something, it's difficult to create a 100% defense system. There isn't one, but it's very important to have it as a key agenda in your board decisions, not something you do reactively when things go wrong. But 5 years ago, things were different, but today, if someone is not taking cybersecurity seriously, I mean, they're almost like Walking Dead.
Yeah, it's pretty much every day there's a huge cyber security hacking story these days, isn't there? Another question here.
My name's Lopa, and I love your app, by the way, Rish. It's brilliant. One question I wanted to ask you was, when Sir Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web, it was a very conscious decision to make it free and open. And when Jimmy Wales created Wikipedia, it was a very conscious decision to make it free and open and add to the sum of human knowledge. Do you feel any pressure to make AR free and open?
From a consumer point of view, it is free and open. Like today, when users are pointing at millions of things, if you point at Mike Butcher himself, everything you'll get to know about him, you'll be consuming that content for free, and we will be paying for the server costs. So that is happening. But like any business, for longevity purposes, you have to have commercial models, and they were slightly different eras, and they're free for the user, but it's a donation-based model, so it's really not free. I mean, someone's still paying for it, but we certainly would be a commercial business moving forward. But everything which from a consumer point of view, it will remain free.
Free at the point of use for the consumer, expensive for the businesses that want to produce advertising, for instance, or branding.
But sometimes we are over-engineering the advertising world. Like a lot of our content is content. It's not advertising, where unlike Facebook and Google as a medium, where if a museum is making its art interactive, it's content. So, but the internet analogy applies more to us than a Google or a Facebook analogy. Yeah.
Well, Rish, it's been fascinating to talk to you. Thank you for giving us a kind of an insight into the future of AR. What time are you going to speak tomorrow?
9:10.
9:10. So you heard it here first. There's going to be some big announcement. Yeah. So thanks very much for coming along. It's been great to talk to you. Big round of applause, please, for Rish Mitra from Blipper.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.